Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Now in today's video, I'm going to be sharing a recipe and it is going to be a modernized version of the traditional Guyanese Mithai. In today's video, I'm going to be sharing my recipe for a red velvet Mithai. You guys, if you love a good red velvet cake or anything chocolatey, this Mithai is exactly for you. They almost taste like little donut holes because they're so fluffy, nice and soft in the middle, and they're nice and crispy on the outside from that sugary coating that I added on as well. Now, I don't know about you guys, but during this time of quarantine and being stuck at home, I've been thinking about so many different ways on how I can revamp or modernize all of the traditional Guyanese foods that I grew up with. So I've shared so many different versions for Mithai on my channel. I'm honestly thinking of calling myself the Mithai King. I've done a lemon version, a chocolate peppermint version, a cherry and coconut version, a lemon version. The possibilities are endless with things like this. I just use it as a blank canvas, and once I get that idea, I go ahead and I put it together for you guys. So I hope you guys enjoy this red velvet Mithai recipe today. To put this very simple Mithai recipe together, you're going to start off in the bowl and you're going to add in your all-purpose flour, and then you're going to go in with some baking powder. The baking powder is what's going to give this Mithai a nice fluffiness and make it super soft in the middle. Now, once you've added in all of your baking powder, you're going to go in with some cocoa powder. Now, you're going to notice that my Mithais look a little darker and the cocoa powder looks a little darker. That's because I only had dark cocoa powder on hand, but if you have the regular stuff, that works perfectly too. And on top of the cocoa powder, I'm going in with some chocolate pudding mix. Now, if you don't have the chocolate pudding mix, you can swap it out for some more cocoa powder, and I'll have all of these ingredients and proper measurements in the description box down below. Now, once you add in all of those dried ingredients into the bowl, you're going to go ahead and mix it up really well just to get everything combined and to break up any lumps of that cocoa powder. If you wanted to and you wanted to take the extra step, you could go ahead and sift the cocoa powder into your bowl, but honestly, I was feeling a little lazy and my hands did the trick in breaking it up just fine. Once all of your dried ingredients are mixed up really well, you're going to go in with some chopped butter. My butter is cold, it is unsalted, and I've chopped it up into fine pieces. And once you add it into the bowl, you're just going to begin to break it up with your fingers. This is what's going to give the Mithai somewhat of a flakiness, and it's also going to add to the fluffiness of the Mithai and keep it soft. So I'm going to continue breaking this butter in, and I'll show you what to do next. After mixing all of these ingredients for a few minutes, you're going to see that you get a very crumbly texture, and that's just because the butter was properly mixed in. Once you add that in and you mix it up, you're going to go in with your red food coloring. This red food coloring is obviously going to give it that red color that red velvet is known for. Now, whenever you're making a red velvet cake, traditionally it will have buttermilk on the inside. The buttermilk usually gives it a nice little tang, and it also gives for a very tender and soft cake. Now, in the case here, I did not have buttermilk, so I'm swapping it out for Greek yogurt, and that's what gave it that nice tangy flavor as well. On top of the Greek yogurt, I am going in with some vanilla extract as well as my evaporated milk. Now, you can use evaporated milk for this, or you can use regular whole milk. And if you wanted to make this vegan, you could use vegan products such as almond milk, or you can use some vegan butter or coconut oil or anything like that just to make it as per your taste, your preferences, and your dietary restrictions. Now, I wanted to mention that the milk and all of the ingredients that I'm adding in, they're all cold. That's going to help it to get a nice flakiness for the end product. And basically, I'm just going to keep streaming in the milk until all of the flour is combined and I get a nice soft dough. Once you get a nice soft dough such as this and it's no longer sticking to your fingers, you're going to go ahead and divide it into two balls. I'm going to do two different batches here. You don't need to let this dough rest at all because there's really no need. I've never had to let my Mithai dough rest, and I always get soft Mithai in the end. If you had the time and you wanted to let it rest just because, of course you could do that. So once you finish mixing your dough and you break it into two portions or however many portions or batches you want to make, you're going to go ahead and sprinkle your board with some flour and start rolling out your piece of dough. Now, whenever making the soft Mithai, you want to go ahead and roll it to about 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch thick. You don't want to go much thinner than that because if you do, the Mithai will really just be crispy and it'll end up getting hard very soon after the cooking process. After you roll out your Mithai to your desired thickness, you're going to go in with a knife or even a pizza cutter and you're going to start to cut it into your desired shapes. Now, I like my Mithai on the bigger and thicker side, and I prefer to cut it in triangles as well as diamond shapes because that's what I'm used to and that's the traditional shapes. But if you wanted to play around with some cookie cutters or literally anything, you could do that as well. And if you wanted your Mithai to be on the crispier side on purpose, you can go ahead and cut these into long strips as well. Just go ahead and do what you want as per your taste and your preferences. And of course, experimentation in the kitchen is always welcome, so I hope you guys go ahead and experiment with this as well. Before I forget to mention this, I also wanted to say that while you are rolling and cutting your pieces of mithai, you want to have your oil heating up. I'm heating my oil up on a medium heat. You don't want to go much higher than that, or else they will burn and get too hard too fast. And I wanted to mention I'm using vegetable oil today, but if you wanted to use canola oil or any other light tasting oil to fry, you can do that as well. Once you get a batch of mithai cut out, you're going to go ahead and start to plop them in your oil. Whenever you're putting anything in hot oil, you want to make sure to put it in away from you, not towards you, because if the oil splatters, it will not splatter towards you if you put it away from you. And I wanted to mention that you don't want to overcrowd this pan. If you overcrowd the pan, especially when making mithai, it creates these little air pockets in the mithai that actually start to suck up a lot of oil, and it makes them way too heavy and not enjoyable at the end product. So make sure you do not overcrowd the pan. Once you get a batch in, you're going to stir them around very slightly. Every couple of seconds, you want to go in and flip them over. And once you see that they start to get a little bit darker in color, you're going to go ahead and take them out of the pot. This will take about 3 to 4 minutes of frying. One thing that I do want to mention that you have to be careful of when you're making this mithai in particular is that it's going to be pretty hard to see when it gets darker, being that it's such a bright red color. What you want to look out for is when that mithai starts to puff up really well, and once they start to feel lighter as you're turning them around, that's sort of your indication that they are done. So it's been about 3 minutes now on that medium heat. As you guys can see, they've darkened in color just a little bit. And what I'm doing is taking them out and I'm draining them in a bowl that I've lined with a paper towel. That paper towel is going to get rid of any excess oil that they may have absorbed. And being honest, these mithais don't absorb much oil. Mithai in general does not absorb too much oil. But you just want to go ahead and put the paper towel down to get rid of any if there is. And after you empty out that first batch, you're going to go ahead and continue rolling and frying the rest of your mithai until your dough is finished. Now once you guys finish frying out all of your mithai, you're going to go ahead and start making the sugar syrup or the paag that's going to coat it. Now if you saw some of my other mithai videos, you would have seen that I finished frying the mithai and I coated it with some powdered sugar and condensed milk. Now that's sort of the cheat way, the easy way, but I totally recommend that when you make this mithai in particular, you make the sugar syrup because that crispiness on the outside really adds another dimension of flavor and texture to this mithai. Now into the pan with the water, I went in with some granulated sugar as well as some vanilla extract. Now when you're cooking the sugar syrup, there are a few things to look out for. I can't really give you an exact timing. Mine did take about 7 minutes, and that's what the time usually is whenever I make any sugar syrup. Usually it's about 7 to 8 minutes, but it might take a little longer. It might take a little less time for you. I did have mine on a medium heat, and it's just been simmering away for that 7 to 8 minutes. Now, the surefire way to know when your sugar syrup is done is once you see that it starts to get a little bit thick and the bubbles are starting to slow down just a little bit, especially around the sides of the pan, you're going to want to go ahead and take a little bit and toss it up on top of some of the mithai in a little bowl. This is just going to be a little tester, so as you're tossing it up, once you see that the sugar syrup starts to get a little crystallized or starts to get a little cloudy, that's your indication that it's done. I just wanted to give you guys a close-up of what it looks like as I'm testing it out. As soon as you see that it starts to get cloudy and white, that's your indication that the sugar syrup is done. Now, if by chance when you test it and you put the sugar syrup on and it crystallizes immediately, you might want to start over because that means you've overcooked the sugar syrup. Now, once your sugar syrup is done and you are happy with how it looks, you're going to go ahead and toss it on top of the whole batch of mithai that you fried. Now, I love using a wooden or a stainless steel spoon. It just depends on what's better on your hands as you're tossing because you're going to need a little bit of elbow grease to toss these up and get them nice and crystallized. Basically, you're going to keep on gently tossing it. What I like to do is use the side of the bowl as a guide and keep tossing the mithai and bringing it around. You want to do this nice and slow so this way you do not break up the mithai as these are very fragile and they're a little tender. And you just want to keep doing this until it gets nice and cloudy and gets crystallized on the outside. As you guys can see, I switched to one of my stainless steel spoons because it just helps as the sugar syrup is getting harder to get around the bowl. I find that the wooden spoons, when you get towards the end, it tends to break up the mithai a little bit. But once you see that it's nice and crystallized and evenly coated, you're going to shake the bowl around just a little bit, just so this way any big lumps of sugar crystals can be broken up, and your mithai is done and it is ready to serve. Alright guys, now I have to be very honest, this was one of my favorite mithai versions or variations that I've made on the channel. The reason being is because I added in a little bit of extra baking powder into this recipe than my normal recipe, and I also went in with that Greek yogurt. The yogurt and the baking powder added such another level of softness and tenderness to the mithai, and it was honestly perfect. Now this is one type of Mithai I recommend to eat as soon as you're finished tossing it in the sugar syrup. Get your coffee ready, get your tea ready, and just get ready to indulge in this amazing goodness right here. This Mithai honestly tastes like you're eating a mini red velvet cake, and it's nice and soft, it's nice and fluffy, and it reminds me also of one of the donut holes that you might get from a donut shop. It's so good, and you guys, I took a couple of these, I sat down with a hot cup of tea, and as you dip them in, I feel like the flavor just gets even better. So I hope you guys enjoyed this recipe today. If you did, make sure you go ahead and head into your kitchen and try it out. I promise you probably have all of these ingredients sitting around and ready to go to make this delicious recipe. Now, if you have any other requests on how I can modernize or remix any of our traditional Guyanese, Indo-Caribbean, or West Indian recipes, please leave me your comments down below. And as usual, give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and make sure you subscribe to this channel if you are enjoying my content. Make sure you click the little bell icon on the red subscribe button, and you will be the first to be notified on when I post my newest videos. I hope you guys are staying safe, I hope you guys are staying home, and all of that good stuff, and I'll see you guys again in my next video. Bye everyone!